Today we're here with Tanya Weder, an instructor at Lethbridge Polytechnic, formerly Lethbridge College, teaching in the multimedia program. Been here for how long?
Oh, I have 24 years.
24 years,
Forever.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well then, I mean, take us through that journey, because 24 years in teaching, especially this was LCC before, right?
Yes.
When you started?
Yep. Yeah, so I took the multimedia program, production program in like 2001. So I came into that program, and at that time I didn't really have any computer knowledge. So I had previously, I lived in Banff for a while, and I was doing housekeeping and things like that. And I thought, okay, I'm ready to segue out of that industry into something
That's a segue.
Different.
For sure.
Yeah, and so I was, looking through the catalog and, trying to decide what to do. And I was always someone that was artistic and interested in a lot of different things. And I did have some minor computer experience, but the internet had only been around for a couple years at this point too. So I didn't have an email before coming here, and it's like the dark ages, I know. But I was like, well, computers seem like a thing that'll be around for a while. I think and it's artistic and, applying hands-on and applying to industry, all those things were of interest to me. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to try this, and came and my parents also had a friend that did, National Film Board animation stuff when I was growing up. So I had a couple chances to see behind the scenes of some claymation films, and he had a music studio in his house. So I'd kind of seen a little bit of behind the scenes of this creative technology.
Right. And this multidisciplinary.
Right, yeah, because then he was doing Foley, and he was a musician, and then the animation stuff. So so I kind of came into the program thinking I would be really into audio. And I was like, we'll just see what the rest of it is sort of thing. And so then fell in love with all of it, basically, but really focused a bit more on graphic design and coding aspects of multimedia. But, I liked the 3D modeling, which at the time was very rudimentary compared to now, and the computers crashed all the time because,
they still crash
the dark
all the
ages.
time,
Yeah.
let's be real.
And I liked video. We were still doing digital tape editing at that point. And anyway, so when I graduated, I worked in industry a bit and was kind of I'm not sure what I was going to get into. So then an instructional assistant position opened in multimedia. So then I was like, well, that would let me keep growing my skills, as well as then, I was doing freelancing on the side. I worked for some advertising companies doing web design, did some gamified web stuff in Flash at the time, doing some graphic design, kind of dabbling in that while being an assistant. So that gave me a really good opportunity to, like I said, grow my skills and kind of find my path a little bit. And then I really fell in love with teaching, working with students, helping them understand concepts that didn't come easily to them, trying to think of different ways to help a concept become clearer for them. And you see that light bulb moment, and you see their growth over their time with us. So loved all that. So I was like, okay, well, how do I get into teaching, right? So then there was some community classes that needed an instructor. So they were again, this is like early 2000s, so how to use a Mac. And it was just like teaching people how to mainly seniors to navigate a Mac. You know, they come in and, because again, the technology was new, so they'd be like taking their mouse and putting it on the screen and trying to like, you know, navigate, and they wouldn't know how to double click or, you know, like any of that kind of stuff, which oddly enough is somewhat coming back again now because it's all touchscreen stuff. So soon we'll have students doing this again on the screens, but yeah, so I taught like Photoshop, you know, different levels of Photoshop and InDesign and things like that. So that gave me some experience managing classrooms and teaching. And then, you know, a couple classes came up where multimedia classes where they needed a sessional instructor, so did that. And then I was kind of like, I don't know what the next step is. I'm somebody that likes to look ahead and try to like plan what those next steps are. So then I was like, well, if a position opened, you know, if I had a degree in something related to multimedia, as well as a teaching certificate, which instructors need to do. If I had those when somebody retired, then I'd be like all set up to like just slide in. So that's what I did. While I was working, I got my degree at Athabasca in communications studies.
Was that remote?
And that was all remote. And at that time, that wasn't common. I guess there is a caveat on that with Athabasca, you can transfer some classes from other institutions. So I could take some here at the university and whatnot that would transfer.
Right, interesting. So it's like, now that's so common, but it's such a flexible.
So, and I actually got some, like a scholarship for like student mobility or something at the time, because not many people were doing that. So they were kind of like incentivizing people to do this, like working across institutions. So
interesting.
Yeah, so then I did that, and then I did the instructional certificate program, and then like a year later, someone retired, and you know, I applied for it and moved into the position. So all my like plans came to.
It's like it was meant to be.
Yeah. But that whole time I was working full time and like doing a class or two at the time, because I wasn't in a position. My daughter was young. Wasn't in a position to like quit working and go to school full time. So I kind of just did like a class or two a semester and picked away at it, which makes it seem to take quite a long time, but you're also not doing it because you're like, I don't have the time to do it. So just kind of picked away at it. And I also did then I did my Master's of Educational Technology at UBC, and that was all remote. I did one class in educational VR that was at UBC. It was like a intensive, like 1 week in person and then some online stuff. Okay. But the rest was online. Again, this is still pre-pandemic, so wasn't as common. I guess I should also say this program was really collaborative, so there was a lot of group work, and you're working with people across the globe. So I'd have partners in like Dubai and London and here or whatever, and trying to like navigate that, like the time change, which now is like, you know, everybody just does it, but then it wasn't as common and we didn't have as good of tools as we have now for that online communication and that sort of thing. So that was a really good learning opportunity, you know, pre-pandemic, to see what worked and what didn't work from a student's perspective for education, and just for like educational technology as a whole. So yeah, and then I finished that and just keep on teaching. So now that's where.
And 24 years go by.
24 years go by somehow.
Well, it's funny because like. How casually you talk about like, oh yeah, the internet was just starting and I jumped into it, and digital graphic design was just starting, so I jumped into it, and the early 3D and then early Macs and educational VR.
Yeah.
It sounds exciting though, because you're always
Yes.
sort of on the cutting edge of something. And by nature of teaching, right, you have to be even a little bit ahead of it.
Yeah.
And then you're in multimedia production, which is kind of by nature like undefined. It's
Right.
shifting, it's changing, it has to be. So what is that environment like? Like, are you, I imagine now you're pretty comfortable with it, but throughout the years, is that something you recognized you had to do, is to always be on your
absolutely.
toes? Or
Yeah.
is like an active thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I mean, not everybody that teaches in these industries are that way, and I think that can sometimes be a drawback in certain programs where they're not staying up to date with technology. But a goal always for me has been to be forward looking, like what's on the horizon, staying current, so you're not still teaching like Director or Flash or something like that that's not being used anymore. And then if you're always kind of like, I'm always updating skills. I'm very curious by nature, and I like to just like tinker and try different things out, which I think is a really important skill for somebody in this industry, because it's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to be kind of constantly learning, and I that's like the whole thing that I love about multimedia and just like creative technology in general, is that it's not like I'm just teaching the same thing all the time, that I'm like learning new things, I'm getting excited about new things, that it's evolving and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Stays fun.
Yes, totally.
Well, and it sounds like it's not even just the content or the technology or the whatever that changes, it's the way you teach.
Oh,
right?
totally.
Like you mentioned
Yeah.
the pandemic a little bit, or remote education, stuff like that. How have you noticed, like looking at it from the student's perspective, right? 24 years of students or 20 odd years of students. How have things sort of changed in the way that they like to be taught, want to be taught, what works for people?
A lot has changed.
I bet. I know, big questions. Sorry.
Well, I think the newest thing is, well, I think, first I'll say, I think throughout the whole time, the best teaching is stuff that's relevant, right? And that you see how it can be applied and like, what's the point? Because if you're just like, oh, you got to code this thing or make this website or make this design, it's like, so what? Like, why should I do that? And it's not interesting to them. And where if you see that end goal or see how it would apply to their practice when they're done, then that becomes more interesting to them as well.
Right. There's like an immediacy to, oh, I see why this is relevant.
Right.
This is a key for a lock that I recognize.
Right. And I think you could be teaching the same content, but on one hand, they don't know where they're going, and on the other hand, they do know where they're going, and that in itself can make the content more interesting or the topic more interesting and make them want to engage with it more, because it's for a reason, not just like because they made me do it or whatever.
Well, in multimedia, like the passion that you talk about it with, whether it's audio or art, the students also come in with some of that drive, right? Like we're not, sorry, accountants, but like it's not an accounting program. Right. It's a program that often these students are like, I don't know, I just like to draw and I want to do something with that. So do you kind of see that in the students too, where with multimedia being multidisciplinary, you have someone who like loves to code but does not care about the graphic design? Or do you find that they eventually kind of see the holistic appeal? Because you even sort of mentioned how things are multidisciplinary in the industry, right? It's good to have that appeal. Do you have to kind of get them there, or are they coming in with that understanding?
I think it is more natural to some people than to others. Like I think some just are like, oh yeah, like we have a lot of neurodiverse students in our or just in our industry in general, where it's like, oh, I kind of like going and jumping into this and digging into it and this and that and kind of moving through different topics. But the nice thing is you do have the opportunity to, what it is you land on that you're most interested in, you have a chance to dig into that in a few of the classes as well. So you become like a generalist with a specialty, which I think is powerful, because even if you don't end up using graphic design and you're only coding, you then have a shared language that you can talk to a collaborator about graphic design.
Right, it's
like,
reflective.
I want this kind of graphic from you,
Yeah.
and then you have that language. Or here's the design, but I know that I have to design it in a certain way for somebody to be able to code it.
Right.
Or like, here's a game level design, but you're not trying to do something that like isn't possible.
Because we work in a collaborative space, right?
Right.
Like, even graphic design nowadays feels like it's so much more applied, right? Like in the early 2000s, 90s, even, you would go to a graphic artist and they would do a logo and off you go. But now you're expected to know how it's going to print, how it's going to look on web.
Yeah, do an animated version of it.
Right, yeah. Well, and you brought up games, like that also being extremely multidisciplinary with all the different facets having so much depth. How do you find teaching things like that, like VR being another good example, film, where each discipline could be its own program?
Sure. Yeah.
And you're kind of teaching bits of each, enough so that they can work in the industry, but also a little bit of specialization. Like, what does that look like?
Chaos? No.
Yeah. I imagine.
I think one of the things that is the most important thing that we teach people is how to learn. And because the technology is always changing, because the industries are always changing, you have to learn how to adapt and how to learn on your own, how to kind of see those trends that you want to jump onto, how to motivate yourself, how to organize yourself, those sorts of things. So I think, and actually kind of jumping back to your question about how student learning has changed, I think another thing that students want maybe more now than ever is like agency in what they're learning. So it might be, in the old days we might have said like, make a Flash game at this size that is a maze of some sort with 3 pickups and you keep score or something. And then they do that like exact thing. There's a little bit of options in like how you design the maze maybe, but it's pretty like confined.
Yeah.
Now it seems more powerful if you kind of let them, you still need to have a box, some sort of like boundaries that they can be creative.
It's not just blue sky.
It's not just like whatever, because then it's too much. Too much option. But if you're able to give them a little bit more agency over what it is that they're making and what it is that they're learning within set parameters, that motivates them more.
Well, and where do you think that comes from? That shift to agency and a desire to like do what they want to do instead of doing what they're told to do?
I'm not sure.
It's tough. I know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's I don't think it's just like rebellion. Or just like, don't tell me what to do.
It gets painted like that sometimes, right? But it feels like it's kind of nice in a way, I guess. It feels like they're really taking ownership of what they're creating and what they're going to do with it. And I wonder if it reflects the industry as well, if things are sort of moving in that direction. I know we see a lot more entrepreneurship in like Generation Z and things like that as well.
Yeah, and I wonder too, like, something I've been pondering about the rise of AI as well, is will that, because it's all kind of like the same and feels like inhuman right now anyway, that there's not like that soul behind a lot of the AI stuff, if then it'll kind of rise to more bespoke, creative, human-made kind of
It'll stand out more by contrast almost.
Yeah. So I don't know. or because there's so much, like, I don't know, I'm Gen X, so, we just like ran wild and
a little more rebellious.
Yeah, like there's no helmets or rules or, that kind of thing. And that is a huge shift compared to what this generation is coming up with, where everything is like, you have to behave this way and so much safety stuff. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but it is a lot more like defined. Life is a lot more defined and scrutinized than, so maybe allowing them to have that choice is like a freedom to let them understand the content in their own way.
Right. Well, and have some impact, I guess, in a world where maybe they feel like a drop in a bucket. Like the internet makes you feel small.
Totally,
and they live in that world. And I think it's really admirable that they kind of want to go and take things by the reins a little bit and go out there. You mentioned a little bit too, even when you were going to school, taking remote courses and stuff. But now we're also seeing a lot of like, to go in line, I guess, with the self-directed assignments, self-teaching and learning off like YouTube and things like that. And what kind of impact has that had on teaching?
Well, I think there's kind of, it's amazing. You can pretty much learn anything, right? I think that can become overwhelming when you don't have, like, when I come to multimedia, as a student, there is a set path that I go through, and I'm going to learn, X, Y, Z, and that takes the pressure off of like trying to find the things I need to learn. Right? Where if it's just like in the vastness of YouTube, become a 3D modeler or a entrepreneur or a whatever, then it's hard to know, like, well, is the content reputable? Is it like this right version of the software I have? Is it going to piece together with these other concepts that I'm learning from other channels? And then I just get like frustrated because nothing's working together.
I've been there.
Right? Where when you do a post-secondary, there is that path. The instructors have had that, foresight to think about how all those pieces of the jigsaw fit together.
Right.
But I do now, as kind of like a veteran in the creative technology field, like I do my learning on YouTube mainly, right? Yeah. But I have that base understanding of how technology works, how software works.
You know how to navigate it. You're the Sherpa now.
And like, or if I'm learning a new coding language, well, I understand how coding works. I know what logic is and that sort of thing. So I can pick up a coding language fairly easily, whether it's, like you're typing it out or it's nodes or whatever. Like I have that understanding. So it's easier to pick up kind of here and there, just in time learning from those other platforms. But if I'm learning something new, like I'm going to learn how to build a wooden cabinet or something, I don't know. If I'm just going to like learn how to use all the tools and what tools I need and how I'm going to design it and all that just from like watching kind of random YouTube, it's going to be a lot harder. I'd rather do like a class. And I do that, like I'll take a class to learn.
Yeah, like and through that, like even mentioned, like now I'm a veteran, so I know how to cut through the noise. Like I know how to navigate. It's like a skill itself.
Even just like searching, like knowing what to search for.
Yeah, well, especially when now we're gonna have all the AI noise on top of things. It's just gonna get more and more kind of muddled. Like the information's out there, but you need to know what you need to know and where to find it.
Well, and that's what I find with, say, like using ChatGPT for coding. If you're just like, oh, code me this thing, it'll give you some code, but it's probably not going to work with the rest of your code, or you might not even have the language to explain what it is that the code that you want it to write. But what it is really good at is like finding bugs or like helping you understand a concept. Like I don't understand if-else statements, can you explain that to me? Or conditional logic, right? Like then it can explain it and kind of have an infinite number of ways of trying to help you understand.
But you still have to figure out how it applies to your project, to your needs, right?
Yeah. So I see quite often it's like, oh, well, this doesn't work. Well, what were you trying to have it do? Well, I just asked ChatGPT to do it because I didn't know what to do, instead of just like stopping and like thinking through what the problem is and logically trying to solve that problem. Because then, there's just, like if we think about a game, there's too many like codependent pieces that aren't going to jive if you're just like, hey, AI, do this for me. That you need that kind of base understanding underneath it.
Well, do you think like as AI comes in and can help with the how a little bit, right? Like I want to do an if-else statement. How do I do it? It starts to become about the what and the why, and you're less a technician like you might have been in the early 2000s. Just using Photoshop was a skill. Now, just using Photoshop is part of being a graphic designer. You have to have an artistic understanding. You have to have the print and the digital understanding and all of that. Do you think we're going to see things evolve that way, where you're less spending all of your time just learning the technical how-to and you're going high level, or?
Yeah, it's tricky. Like I think thinking like Photoshop, for example, when I started Photoshop, it would take you like days to remove like a wire, like a, like a wire in the background or whatever. Or where now it's like a touch of a button and you can replace like the whole sky, or just like and it's perfect or near perfect. You might have to touch it up a little bit, but so I think that's always something that has happened with technology. I think now that it's getting like, it was more always the tools that evolved, not like how you thought about things. And I'm not sure how to like explain that exactly, where it was like, oh, well, the clone stamp tool in Photoshop works better now or whatever, versus, well, I can just write text and then it makes the thing. So
but
like the whole
core
thing,
skills of a creative and artist haven't changed so much.
Right, you still need to know color theory, you still need to know, or like I always use examples from parts of multimedia I don't know, like, you need to know how many vertices are in a 3D thing. I always choose these things, or like do sports analogies or something, because I mean,
color theory is good. That's
color theory,
accessible.
Or like like your principles of design, grid layout, like all of those, the symbolism, fonts, like all of those kind of things. Even if you're prompting it versus using a tool to create it, you still have to know that theory underneath.
And you still have to make choices.
Yeah.
Right? You still have to have intent and things like that.
Yeah, I think what I think is I have no idea where it's going to go.
That's the real truth of it, yeah.
And I don't think anyone really does. Like, will it wash out where it does turn into like its tools in programs that we're using? Does it wash out where we just, in plain language, explain the thing that we want to make and it's just like made somehow? And who knows? And like, maybe that means that the next technology will be like crocheting something that's not in a screen, or like making experiences that are projected into a room. Like, that's something I'm really interested right now. So there is no screen anymore. It's just like something that we can all experience together, a game or whatever, with our bodies and our eyes in the same room, or like the old days.
Well, it's so funny because I remember when I was a kid thinking about VR, right? And like, then we'll have this future, and it was both what I imagined and absolutely not what I imagined. Sweaty foam rashes around my nose area is not what I imagined, but a lot of it was, right? So it's like half true. You can sort of guess. So what do you think then, like for students coming in, let's say someone's going to take multimedia 5 years from now, they're entering middle school. What are the skills of the future you think that that they would need to bring in both to a program, but also that they should maybe take out of it, like that the industry that the workforce is going to be looking for, but also will serve them as creatives and like the core skills obviously are going to stay there, the creative, artistic.
Yeah, like I think things like curiosity. If you're just like generally interested in things and you want to see how they work, how, like, you want to know the recipe for whatever it is that you like. It's a game I like, a movie I like, a graphic novel that I like, or whatever. If you like are someone that you want to just like figure out how that's made, that's going to serve you regardless of what the technology becomes.
Right.
Somebody that likes problem solving. So if you run into a problem, if you're somebody that just like crumbles, right? Or like you're like, oh, I don't know, it doesn't work, whatever.
Give up.
You give up, that's not going to serve you well in any of these kind of creative technologies. So if you're willing to like bash your head against the wall a little bit as you're trying to figure out why.
That's why we're all a little bit.
Why it's not working. If you like don't want to give up because you're curious about what the solution is, then that like is something that serves you well. If you like to like work with other people, I know lots of people think, oh, you're just like a computer nerd, so you sit behind your desk, but you might be working in a distributed model where you're not in the same room as one another, but you're still going to be working with somebody, whether it's a client, whether it's other people on your team to build something, whether it's you've got grant funding for something, and you're still always like beholden to somebody. Kind of the difference between a hobby and a career. Right. It is most of the time you are all the time working with somebody else or for somebody else. Yeah. So having some sort of like people skills, I think like it comes back to curiosity too. Like, what's the problem that we're trying to solve together? Yeah. And let's work together to figure that out too.
What do people skills look like now? Because I know we hear everyone lament like, oh, kids nowadays can't look people in the eyes or use a phone or...
I think every generation has always said, these kids these days, right? Whether it was our grandparents said it about our parents or our parents said it about us. I don't see the same, I don't look at millennials or Gen Alpha and be like, think that they...
Just different technologies, different means of communicating, And
it's also... culturally too, like different cultures, like not all cultures are looking each other in the eyes the whole time either, and it's not a disrespect, it's just a difference. So I think that after the pandemic that we've all gotten really good at like online community stuff, although I think that can lead to less of this, like less of, let's just have a conversation in the same room and see what comes up. Because that often will end up in more interesting, different places, I find anyway, than if we're like a screen between us. You're just kind of like, you're more playful, you like joke around more. It doesn't seem as much like we just got to get down to business, like you're kind of talking around the desk and things come up. So I think that's something that we could foster more, or could be fostered more. But I always think that it's not just like these kids these days. Well, then it's like, well, what are you doing to help mentor them in the places that you think that they need mentorship, to have different professional skills or communication styles or whatever? How are you helping them? Because if you're not, then just saying these damn kids isn't doing anyone any good.
Right, yeah. Well, and it's kind of interesting because you mentioned them like, what are we doing to mentor them? What are we doing to help them come in? The flip side of going to school for a lot of the students that come is like then having that step into a career path, whether they're self-employed, they're going to do contracts, they're going to work for a studio, whatever they're going to do. That transition, looking at it from like the company side, the industry side, what do you think people kind of need to understand, I guess, about the younger generation coming in. Also, like the techie, and you mentioned neurodivergent folks who tend to be a lot more common in these creative industries. How do we like prepare to set them up for success and kind of understand where they're coming from and what they bring?
Are you saying from
the industry
side?
Yeah. If you're like a studio looking to hire some juniors, some people fresh out of college, or looking to maybe contract someone who's just starting up.
Yeah, I'm a really big proponent of mentorship. So like, I think anyone can learn things if given the opportunity to, and can understand why they are, like why are things done the way they are, and if I have a misstep, that it's not just like, well, these juniors don't know what they're doing. And like,
we were all juniors
same kind
once.
of thing, right?
Yeah.
To remember that and see it as like learning opportunities to help evolve them into the, star employee that you want them to be.
Right.
I had a thought and then it floated away. Yeah, I think that. Also with like the rise of different technologies and AI as well, that there some of those really junior jobs where you kind of are cutting your teeth and learning the industry, they're getting cut.
Yeah.
So you only kind of have the more intermediate and higher level jobs. So there's less opportunity to learn that intro stuff. So I think that industry has to be mindful of that, and otherwise you're never going to get anyone trained up to get into those higher level positions without. And because the technology changes so fast that schools, a 2 or 4 year program can only get people so far, that always industry is going to have to, kind of take their hand and help them along as well. And I think that that's just needs to be something that's baked into you.
Well, that's such a good point. It's a two-way street, right? Like we're seeing this in the game industry right now, where due to layoffs and people just kind of tired of the way the industry works, especially at the AAA level, we have people leaving in droves by the tens of thousands, lots of senior experienced talent. And everyone in the industry, the devs, are recognizing it's not going to be long before we don't have enough people.
Right.
But nobody wants to take the juniors. Nobody wants to train the juniors. You don't get seniors if you don't train the juniors.
Totally.
And then we see on the student side that they can't break in because the bar is so high to get them in. So how does one bridge that gap? Like what, in your opinion?
What do you think?
I wish I knew, man. It's tough because I believe in your approach. I think the studios need to take a certain level of responsibility for the health of the industry.
Right.
And also juniors, they bring a lot of ideas, and they also don't understand what can't be done yet. So they bring this can-do kind of attitude, whereas a lot of the seniors, they'll hear an idea and they can think of 15 reasons why we shouldn't do that.
Right.
But maybe you should do that.
Right.
We're talking about
explore it, or kind of do it,
or at least entertain it, right?
Right.
If we want to stop stagnating creatively, which I know at this moment in time a lot of people are talking about, especially the big studios. We're seeing sort of creative stagnation due to market forces and blah, blah, blah. But I think a lot of it too is due to lack of just people who don't know any better and pursue the crazy
almost
ideas.
That risk taking or creative risk taking.
Yeah, and
it's kind of, we see that in movies and stuff too, though. It's like, well, there's a formula we know works, right?
Exactly.
And we don't want to mess with that too much. We want to kind of keep within that because we know that'll make us money. But eventually it won't make you money anymore because everything is that.
But now they don't know how to do anything but the formula, because that's the only people they have left.
Right.
And I kind of get it from a studio standpoint, though, that you could hire a senior dev who can do 5x what a junior dev can do. And if you only have money to pay for 1 or 2 people, you're probably going to go for the senior if that's all you have. And so I also believe in, this could come from the industry side, it could come from government, I'm not sure, but subsidizing the junior leap from post-secondary into industry, or from hobbyist into industry a little bit, at least for those smaller studios, because that's also where they're going to be able to have a little more impact out the get-go.
Yeah.
But the truth is I don't have a real answer.
Yeah. And I mean, I think when I started in this industry, because it was so new, there wasn't as many barriers, and it certainly was not, like, I mean, there was 256 colors on the internet, period. There was no audio, no video. We're talking text and pictures, and it was weird. And like now we kind of have this like yellow pages is what websites are, where back when we started out, they were all like, it was like a weird, interesting journey every place that you went. And then more and more it became like, okay, well, this is what is expected, cookie cutter kind of situation. And like, then you stifle all that creativity, but it also simultaneously gets more and more technically advanced. So it's now we have databases, and it's user generated content, and it's, you know, way more advanced technically, but not fun.
Exactly. You know? Like, you remember Blue Flame Text? What happened to Blue Flame Text? But it's because it was like nerds and teenagers just building stuff. There were no rules. And granted, like, the user experience now is much better, and I probably get a lot less viruses, but like it was fun. And you have to have some people in there who like don't know the rules, I think, to get that.
When I was like in, oh God, I don't know if it would have been junior high school, but we had like one Macintosh computer, maybe it was even elementary, one Macintosh computer in the school.
Did it have the iMac monitor with the
no, that's way
plastic?
later.
Oh.
This is like just like green on green, like DOS kind of screen. And you would write lines of code that were like written in a book, and you'd write it out. And I remember on the screen was a stick man made of O's for the head, and like, you know, a stick man body, and it went like, and I just thought it was like the coolest thing in the world. Right now, no one would even think that was anything.
Right.
But that's just like that magic of like, oh my God, here's this, I made this thing, and it's like so different. But if we're always like stifling everything before, like if somebody has a weird idea, if you go right away, well, we can't do that. But if you go, tell me more about that, and you can kind of dig through it and go, okay, well, maybe it can't be done in that format, but maybe there's something there, something novel or interesting or different.
Maybe it's not the idea you had, but it's the why you had it, or like we just need more room for play in learning and design. Yeah, I'm all about playfulness in this industry. I teach this interactive project class, which I approach as a game dev class, and it's done in students form small teams, and over about 8 weeks they make a game. But I don't give them what platform it's in. I don't give like, it could be 2D, it could be 3D, it could be a puzzle, it could be a narrative, it could be whatever. But, you know, there's steps along the way where they're developing their idea and that sort of thing. But then, and sometimes it works great, and sometimes it's not so successful, but there's still something there that they learned, and still always something interesting, whether it's like really cool graphics, or the audio design is really cool, or the narrative is cool, whatever it is, but it's something where they've just like played around and made a thing. And I think that kind of playfulness is, I don't know, where innovation comes from. Yeah, like we really value that word innovation, right? Like you always hear, oh, we need to fund innovation. Gotta innovate. You gotta, you know,
synergize.
Then when you realize what that actually looks like, it's so much messier.
Yeah, totally.
Even the synergizing thing, I imagine over that 8 weeks, there's a lot of, let's say, learning communication the hard way. Oh,
totally, yeah. Like, because it's just as much about learning to project manage and communicate as a team and set milestones and sprints and these sorts of things as it is about like building the thing in the technology. How do you bring something to life as a team where you're all held accountable and doing stuff together? it's a learning process. Even if it like doesn't get there, even if there's challenges in communication, that's where the learning is happening. So, and then you're learning that here instead of like the first time you're at a studio or whatever, or working with a client.
Where it's a little more high stakes.
Exactly, yeah. A safe place to fail in the best way, right? Like that all your money or reputation, like professional reputation, isn't on the line, so you have a chance to learn and go through some of those stumbling blocks before you're on the job.
When do you find, because I know I've certainly seen this in like the students that I've met and worked with, there's so much more desire to like make their own thing, start their own studio. Like they're less afraid of it, I feel like, than previous generations who were like, I'm gonna go work at a studio and I'm gonna learn it. They're like, nah, I'm just gonna. Yeah. Is there a lot more of that?
I think there is a lot more of that. I do not have an entrepreneurial spirit. I really admire people that do, that like, you know, are risk takers and, you know, can chase funding and want to make their own things and stuff. Like I'm happier to be led a little bit more through.
Well, that landscape's changing. Like it's constantly changing, and so they're having to learn their discipline, like initially, and they're having to figure out how to like turn it into a business, but the industry and the economics are changing at the same time, and you know, the world just moves so quickly.
It seems like there is more too, kind of along those same lines, more students that are okay, or young professionals that are okay kind of having a day job as they're growing, continuing to grow those skills. Or, you know, I want to do an indie game, or I want to do commercial videos or whatever it is. But I'm not quite at the point where I can put all my eggs in that basket yet. So I'm still going to do some sort of more, whatever, not 9 to 5 or part-time thing, and then part-time this other thing, so that they, like, it's not quite as risky, I guess. And they don't seem to judge themselves as much on that as like,
it's good.
My generation. It's more like kind of all or nothing, I think, in that.
When the idea was go to school, get your certificate, degree, whatever, get a job, do that career forever, like those days are long gone, especially in the creative industries. It's, I mean, even look at your career, like sure, you've taught for 24 years, but you've taught like 30 disciplines, frankly. And
I think I'm pretty abnormal in more ways than one. No, but in terms of like staying at a job for that, like, or even working, like it's different jobs within the Polytechnic, but just to even stay at anywhere for that long is quite uncommon between my peers, or in my peer group.
We got another 24 years in us?
We'll see.
Do you, okay, let's have some fun with it for a second. Let's say 15 years from now, what do you think will be the most popular multimedia course? Is it like hard light sculpture, VTuber theater?
It probably, in how many years?
10, 15. Near
we probably
future.
Don't even know. I don't know. I think like I said earlier, I'm really interested in the projection mapping and interactive projection mapping stuff, so that there's no screen in between, like no headset, no AR glasses, just like it's on, we're interacting with the walls, and then interacting with like real world things. So, you know, I twist the knobs on this and it actually controls something.
Like a digital twin.
Like, yeah. So I think like that might be some things that people can experience together. I think there'll be more of this like wanting to
be in the physical space.
Exactly. So not we're meeting online somewhere, but like meeting in person and doing more.
Interesting.
face-to-face stuff, but still having digital technology.
That's
around
hopeful.
us.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I try not to be too dystopian.
But it's funny how, like, because I also went through the shift of, like, these phones are rotting your brain,
Right.
and debatably they are.
Yeah.
But things get really bad and then they get good
Yeah.
again, and we find ways to navigate it. So I
I
think
think
that'd be cool.
Historically, sometimes when you look at the darkest, most kind of chaotic, turmoil-fraught times, it was right before some sort of major change, major revolution has happened.
Right.
So let's hope.
That sounded
That's
nice.
what's happening
and,
right now. That we're just like, we're almost at like Star Trek, right?
That would be nice. Yeah.
Just like, get rid of capitalism. We need food replicators. We need
We'll just make art all day.
make art all day. Wouldn't that be lovely?
I love it.
A renaissance of
Digital art.
creation.
Creation
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be very cool. Well, one thing I want to end on is because like we can't not have a post-secondary teacher here and not ask you to tell us a funny story, because I know you've got 20 years
Oh gosh.
worth of them.
Well, I think I will maybe go and tell a little bit more about early days of multimedia, like when I was a student. Back in my day, this is back in my day with Tanya Weder. So we had, in the lab, well, first when I started, our computers had zip disks. Do you know what a zip disk
Oh boy,
is?
yes, I do.
So they're just like a small disk about this big, it's like smaller than a floppy, but they held 100 megabytes. And I was like, how in the world could you ever fill 100 megabytes worth of space? Like, there's no way you could ever fill that much space. And then we had one CD burner in each lab, and we had to make like burn our final assignments to CD-ROM. So you'd have to like book time on that computer to like be able to burn your CD, and then half the time it would fail, so you'd have to do it like 3 or 4 times to get your like CD burnt with your portfolio on it, so you
That's
could hand it
amazing.
out to people or whatever. Yeah, it's funny just like how crazy and quickly things change.
Yeah.
I was also like a really big Flash developer, so one of my favorite games that I made as a student,
A Flash game.
Flash game, I was very proud of it. It was a cat litter box, and you had to scoop up
No way.
the kitty litter to get points. That was my big final project game.
We're gonna have to get our hands on that. And you're gonna have to remake it, remastered
there
edition, announced.
there are still some Flash emulator, like you could upload your Flash file to or Swift file to some websites, and it'll still play it. So yeah, I every once in a while I go revisit some of my old projects just to see how weird they were.
But I love that, right?
So dumb. And it was just, like this little scoop, and you just like scooped it up.
See, like I said, we need more weird ideas.
Yeah, well, I got those.
Well, we're gonna pressure you for that because I absolutely need to play it. But
Yes.
thanks, Tanya. Thanks for taking us on that adventure.
Yeah, you're welcome. I need to practice drawing a poop litter box. To play
Yeah.
They just draw their game and put it here.
We can't afford computers.
Yeah, computers. They're not ready for that.